Hello and welcome to episode 6. This episode is brought to you by my inability to sleep at a respectable time.
Everse.
All right, and happy Friday, everybody. I hope you're having a great day out there. This episode is a little bit more introspective. Today, we're going to talk about a topic a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners hear a lot. And I know the first time I heard it, I didn't really know how to make sense of it. And that is the phrase and the philosophy, it's just business. So we're going to dive into that, and I'm going to share my thoughts, and I want to hear everybody else's thoughts about, that phrase. What do you hear when someone says that, especially when it's something negative, or perhaps, you use it as a explanation for something that you've done. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so today's topic is a pretty, I guess for me, a pretty heavy topic. And that is this phrase that you probably hear a lot in movies, TV shows, and sometimes at the workplace. And that is, it's just business, or something like, hey, don't take it personal. That's just the way business goes, or something along those lines. Whatever permutation or form it takes, I think the core message is that whatever has happened to you, whether it is by myself or as a third-party observer, what I see happening to you, you should not take it personal. You should not take personal offense or see it as a personal affront because, hey, this is just part of work. This is just part of this world. It is just part of whatever, XYZ. Insert your specific work or business scenario here. So I think the logic goes something like this. I see that X has happened to you. I see that you are reacting negatively to said thing, and you should not react negatively because X that has happened to you is only within the context of Y. And that Y variable is business or whatever, what have you. Sometimes we'll see this when a supervisor or whatever your boss is talking to you about, say something didn't go right, say you had a project proposal denied, or sometimes it's a pitch that is declined for some unexplained reason. And, the person will often say, well, hey, you know what, but it's fine. Don't take it personal. It's just business. And then they kind of just, brush it off of their shoulders and expect you to do the same. As you could probably surmise from my tone, I don't necessarily agree with this. I guess we could call it a philosophy. I believe that it is a coward's way out of accounting for or being accountable for their own actions and the feelings that that may cause in a human being. I think that such a phrase fundamentally denies another person their humanity by trying to segment off a section where they cannot be fully human, where you are essentially saying, well, any other circumstance, you would be completely justified in feeling that. However, I'm going to use this random scenario that just happens to be work to try to explain to you why I don't think you should feel or react that way. So, you have another person saying, okay, well, I'm going to presume to tell you how you should actually be. And there's where we get to that point of denying another person's humanity, denying them their agency in the work, in the business context. I think what really pisses me off about this is that for a person to say that, they have to first recognize or empathize with that person in order to perceive that that person is reacting negatively. And then they make a conscious choice to devalue that reaction, thus for themselves justifying or vindicating their own actions or the actions of another. I believe it's a sociopathic trait. It's like saying, hey, I know I just did this very bad thing that is not socially acceptable. However, it's okay because I've just absolved myself from any wrongdoing. That, if anybody were to do that in any other situation, you would look at that person, especially when it comes to injuring or negatively affecting another person, and say you're a sociopath, or if you're not trying to diagnose somebody, you're crazy. Like, what? Why would you do that? That is wrong. So, as an entrepreneur, there are many situations where you will come across or you will encounter opportunities to both be on the receiving end and the sending end of such a philosophy. And as I said in episode 1, I'm not here to preach at you. That's probably one of the more preachier moments, one of the more preachy moments that I would have. But you do have a choice in who to be, how to be. So that is one thing to consider in building your business owner identity. Will you choose to ignore those facets? Is that something that's important to you? Is it important to take into account others' feelings? A good counterpoint where it's not always advantageous to take into account as a priority another person's feelings is law practice. A lot of the time, in law, you have it's very hard because you have this struggle between what a person feels, what a person perceives, and what simply is, what simply are the facts of a given circumstance. And sometimes you need to tell somebody, well, while you may believe that, that is simply not the case. That's a good counterpoint to, why I may think, the phrase "it's only business" is wrong. Consider a lawyer who is advising a client that no, you cannot just steal or embezzle or something. I don't know. And now you are here because you are facing the consequences of that. Yes, that person may feel like they are being wronged, that they are being persecuted by those things. But that is simply the case, that you cannot just take what you want. I think that's a pretty floppy analogy for many reasons, but I hope it at least kind of elicits the point I'm trying to draw, that there's, it's not such a black and white thing. It's not just, you should never say it. You should never hold that philosophy. I think what I'm trying to say is that there's a time and place. There is a time and place to be hard, with air quotes there. But that does not mean that because it looks cool when you see it in the movies, that you should just go out and do it. A lot of time you see these hyper successful business people, that will totally screw over somebody and then they say, hey, but it's only business. And then they walk away all cool and it's like theme music. It, from firsthand account, it doesn't feel good. It does not feel good to tell somebody that, because at the end of the night, you still go home and you still lay in bed and you have to deal with yourself. And you have to deal with, I said that to another person, I did that to another person. And I believe unless something is really broken in you, it stays with you. And so as you walk down this road, which is certainly hard and certainly filled with gray areas of what should I do here, what should I do there, was that right, was that wrong, you really have to examine what or who it is you want to be, what you want to stand for. And I think that's where you make that determination on when it's right and when it's wrong to hold that type of belief that this is only business. So you should not pay attention to, or you should not give such credence or gravity to another person's actions in comparison to your own feelings or thoughts. One thing to keep in mind as you embark on such a journey is the fact that you still are a person, and you are becoming a person that has a business, but a person nonetheless. And that there will be times where you get frustrated, that you are passionate about something. And I would venture to say that if you are not passionate about something, then why are you entering into entrepreneurship about it, regarding whatever that topic is? So you will get upset, you'll get mad, you will be angry, you will be sad, you will run the gamut of emotions, and that's just part of it. But don't deny yourself your humanity in doing that. Don't think that, no, I can't be angry, no, I can't be mad, sad, furious because something didn't work out. You're still a person, and you're going to have those feelings. Just because you are acting in the capacity of a business person does not mean that all of a sudden you can't have those feelings, or that they're now magically prohibited. I think that, that's just lies people make up, like you're going to have to write in cursive when you go to high school. It's BS. It's just part of that whole professionalism lie. I think that being a professional is about being even keeled and knowing your stuff. As you would see in almost any profession, when you reach a level of mastery or even genius in your craft, it comes with eccentricities. It's just comes with the territory. Using football as an example, have you ever seen a football player that was excellent at their craft and not a little weird, whether it was just strange? Not even football, it was sports. Dennis Rodman, Weird as heck, but good. Um, I'm a Broncos fan, sort of, kind of obligatory there, but Aqib Talib, he was good, but he had a temper. He was just weird, and that's just something that comes with it. So you have to keep in mind that all of these people accept their humanity, and they roll with it and they make it work. They incorporate it into their craft, whether it's passion, whatever it is. They incorporate it into their craft, rather than denying that part of them and only bringing 7/8 of themselves to their craft. They bring their whole person. So with that being said, I have a story. So it's time for story time. The title of this story is When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. So during my time, when I was doing time at Walgreens, there was a specific night that I think a lot of people in Colorado will remember. However, at the time I lived in Tampa, Florida, and I worked at Walgreens. It was July 20th, and I was just doing my work, and then my phone rings. Not gonna answer it because I'm working. Phone rings again. Not gonna answer it because I'm working. Phone rings again, and then a Facebook Messenger, the little ping thing comes up. Then I get text message. So I'm thinking, oh, what happened? So I look, text message. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Hey, what's going on? Are you okay? So sneak away, and one of my best friend Ashley calls, and she said, hey, are you in Colorado? Or I know you live in Aurora. Long story short, that was the night of the Aurora theater shooting. Now, after that, I started calling, checking on my friends, making phone calls back because a lot of people thought that I was still in Aurora. So I excused myself. I let people know where I was going to be, and I just started to take care of business, call, check in with everybody. Luckily, all of my friends, all of my acquaintances were okay. For my brother, not so much. There were some people that sadly did not make it that he knew. But that was that night. I remember one of I forgot, they have really goofy titles there, but basically I don't know how they've restructured, but the second in command kind of guy saw me making these calls, kind of just real to myself, and he says, hey, what's going on? So I explained to him what happened, and he says, and I will always remember this, he looks at me and says, so why does that give you an excuse not to work? And I will never forget the look in his eyes, because there was just the absence of everything. He could not just imagine why a person would take a second to check in and call friends and call family, to make sure they were okay. And I remember going back the next day to get a write-up for being on my phone while I was supposed to be working. So utilizing company time to make personal calls. And that is one that I fought with Walgreens, just because it made no sense. And I hope that they're embarrassed and ashamed, that they would back somebody or whatever. And we had that talk of, well, Kellen, one thing you have to understand if you want to be successful at this job is that, it's just business, and people will say things that, may be hurtful, but you just have to ignore it. Well, I chose not to ignore it. That is not something that is excusable to me. That was something where people died. People that I went to school with died, senselessly. And for me to take, I think it was about 8 minutes to let people know I was still alive and to check and see if, my cousins were still alive, because I had just talked to them and they said they were going to see Batman that night. I think, I don't know, it's inexcusable for somebody that is responsible as a leader of a business to forget that, people are humans outside of work, and to only see them as things that, that are there for you to command. I think that's very inexcusable and reprehensible. So it took a while, actually. So I had that write-up on my record. I had a whole bunch of write-ups, mainly for standing up for myself. Never any cash airs, whatever, or anything that you would think is material to the job. But finally got to a point where I just sat the guy down, or cornered him, really, and I was just like, I think you're a disgusting human being. I think that for you to not believe me during that moment, and to choose to say, well, that's not an excuse to go back, or to not be working right now, is really a reflection of your character. I know that here is just a stepping stone for me, and I see you as a stepping stone. But this is something that you've chosen to make as your career. And I hope that you seriously consider who you are. And maybe you change. And I could still saw that same dead look in his eyes. I don't know. I believe that, some people are truly sociopaths. And I believe that I did encounter one there. And I hope that he has not taken that any further. Or I hope that I am wrong. But that was definitely a very Twilight Zone experience. I don't know how many people can say that they've looked into another person's eyes and saw the absence of anything. It's very scary, and it was just weird. I think that night, or a few nights after finally getting some closure on that battle, I remember going home and watching True Blood, and it was like some gory scene, and that was more comical than watching this guy completely ignore the fact that a whole bunch of people lost their lives, and that, people may be affected by that, and that moving a box from point A to point B, or the lack thereof, for 8 minutes is not that important. Yeah, it was just strange. It was very strange. Yeah, it still gives me the chills just recalling that, and bringing it forward today. That is something that I always remember, and always try to incorporate, to remember that as a leader you have to have some sort of soul, some sort of purpose beyond just get to work. So that concludes story time, and when keeping it real goes wrong. And that's all the time we have for today. Again, I hope you have a really great Friday, and really think on, and I want your feedback on what you think about, these things. This is definitely one of the heavier topics, but I really rely on everybody's feedback. I get a lot of verbal feedback, but there's always comments. So for those of you that give me calls, that I really appreciate it. For those of you that listen and have questions, try me. Post a comment, and I will definitely respond. I really appreciate everybody's feedback again and your involvement in this. This episode 6 marks the first month of EVC, so I thank everybody that's listening. And until next time, this is Kel, and I will talk to you later.